And thank you everyone for joining today. It's been quite a whirlwind of a few weeks and unprecedented change with COVID-19 and the impacts to our community. For those of you who don't know me, I'm Dana McCauley, CSEP, and I'm honored to be your ILEA International President-elect. And on behalf of the entire ILEA International Board of Governors, our thoughts are with you, each and every one of you. We're here to support you, our members, during this challenging time. So thank you to each of you for all that you do for our community coming together. This will definitely carry us through. We are working hard to keep you informed, sharing strategies to assist you as we rebuild in the coming weeks and beyond. Last week, we shared a number of educational webinars on topics including legal strategies, utilizing Zoom, which was led by Tiffany Rozier, CSEP, our ILEA Southeast Regional Vice President. And then part two, making meetings and events virtual with Will Curran and Dustin Westling, CSEP. So big thanks to all of them for leading those sessions. Today, we have tips and advice from a seasoned insurance expert. We'll be welcoming Larry Cossio, Executive Vice President of Cossio Insurance, a division of Brown & Brown. Larry will be offering us insights and what you should be thinking about as it relates to event and business insurance, especially during times of crisis and change like these. Before we turn things over to Larry, we'll run through a few Zoom logistics, although I feel like we're all becoming pros these days. I'm going to hand it over to Paige to give us a quick run through.
Oops, I have to unmute myself. So for a few logistics, you can mute and unmute yourself by clicking the speaker. Everyone will be muted while Larry speaks. And then if you're unmuted to ask questions, you will receive a notification. Then for the chat will be open during the meeting, allowing you to send messages and to the host or panelists and all of the attendees. And you can see the chat button, which looks like has 3 dots on it. Oops. And then you can also raise your hand during the meeting. That feature is shown up at the bottom where the other icons are. And that will notify me that, if I see someone just raise their hand, that you need something. Then there's also the question and answer, which has the Q icon. And this allows you to ask questions to the speaker. Jeff or Dustin will reply, and make sure to check the question and answer section before you ask repeated questions. And then also the recording will be, the webinar will be recorded. So if you have to leave for any reason, we'll have it on the communities and send out an email communications. And then if you have to leave the meeting, there is, it says leave and it's in red. And so you can do that. And then I'll pass it back to Dana.
Okay, thanks so much, Paige. Really appreciate you doing a quick run through. We'll be monitoring that chat box and Q&A throughout, getting ready for that later. But at this time, it's my pleasure to introduce Larry Cossio, Executive Vice President of his insurance company and also very longtime friend of ILEA. Larry has been a licensed agent broker since 1979 when he was like 2 years old, and has been speaking on insurance topics since 1980. He hails originally from my neck of the woods in San Diego, California, and he's now based in South Carolina. He got his start with Allstate and then founded his own independent agency. They specialize in niche markets that are underserved, developing coverage that is needed to protect clients correctly, and finding the companies that provide coverage on a nationwide basis across the United States. He is a speaker, as I mentioned, on insurance and also safety issues for several different industries, including ours, and provides insurance for the broad spectrum of our ILEA industry members. Larry will be giving a short presentation, has a lot of information in it, and then we'll open it up for the questions in the chat box and the Q&A, and those will be moderated by our dear friend, Dustin Westling, CSAP from the ILEA International Board of Governors. So without further ado, I will go ahead and turn it over, so please join me in welcoming Larry to do his presentation. Welcome, Larry.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Hopefully you're having a great day. I just want to make sure that everybody is on the right page here. One of the last issues that came up with the terrorist bombing in New York, ISIS had to change its name to ILEA. So hopefully Corona doesn't make you guys change your name to something else. We're going to talk about the type of insurance issues that you're dealing with as event planners, venues, and we're going to kind of break it down on a case-by-case basis with coverages, and then give you guys a chance to ask questions and try to give you some answers. This whole issue is fluid. It changes every hour, every day, and I just got an email before we went live that said Lloyd's of London went from stable rating financially to questionable because of all the claims coming in. So we're going to try to kind of shed some light and give you guys some answers. All right, so we got two different issues up on the board. We're dealing with a pandemic. An epidemic is something small. A pandemic is global, affecting a large number of people. It started in China, has gone all the way across the world, and we're seeing it in pretty much every country that has internet still. Go ahead, Paige. All right, so the pandemics we've already dealt with: AIDS, SARS, HIV, swine flu, MERS, Ebola, Zika, and now we're dealing with this one. So the coronavirus has caused all kinds of issues. You see there's previous issues there with animals. This one is spread through animals, and I believe it started in one of the areas in China. So now we're dealing with the coronavirus, and that pandemic is worldwide, as I just said. Let's go to the next slide. The biggest question, does our insurance cover this? And it doesn't matter if it's the hotels, if it's the event planners, event producers, any retail business, wholesale business. It's really the hot topic. Everybody's up in arms because some of them purchased business interruption coverage and are assuming that that's covered. In order for that insurance coverage to be triggered, it has to have a direct physical loss to property. It's under the property coverage. A direct physical loss would mean catches on fire, roof caved in, roof blew off because of a tornado. If it's a business is forced to shut down because it's contaminated, attorneys are arguing that that is a direct physical loss, even though the policy has exclusions. Most of them have exclusions for any type of communicable disease, an epidemic or pandemic, bacteria, fungus. You're going to see those in most policies. Just because it's so hard to quantify what that claim would be and be able to charge a premium for that. Next slide. All right, so most of the businesses have general liability insurance. That's going to take care of third-party bodily injury claims if they come and they sue you. It's mainly for bodily injury and property damage that you or your employees would do to somebody else. There's exclusions on the general liability form. You got to read these policies because that's where the secrets are. Every one of those 40 or 50 pages that's in there. Most people never do. You buy it, you get the certificate of insurance, and you're done. So I'm finding a lot of our customers are reading a policy now for the first time and say, well, what about this? What about that? Is this covered? So the general liability is the number one thing that everybody's going to purchase. That doesn't necessarily kick in on the front side of a pandemic. Next page. Professional liability is what you need as a event planner, event producer. That's going to cover other than bodily injury or property damage. Your error or omission to provide some type of service, failure to perform, where they say, hey, I told you we had to have a band that played oldies, and the band only had 2 or 3 oldies. The food wasn't right. There was a peanut allergy issue, and there's peanuts in one of the dips. Anything where you forgot to perform and notify the subcontractors that came together for that event. There's 2 types of insurance. There's a claims made and occurrence. Claims made policies must be in effect when the claim happens, and they have to be notified. So if a policy is 12 months from start to finish, and you have an incident that occurs in July, and it's a January to December, that claim, that incident has to be reported to the insurance company before that policy period ends in December. That's part of the claims made. An occurrence policy says if you have a claim and it happened during that policy period, there's coverage. So most professional liability policies are claims made, so you have to be aware of notifying the insurance carrier. Next page. That's pretty good. Her name's Paige too. Next page. Thank you. Directors and officers insurance. The larger corporations are going to have this type of coverage. This has been brought up to the forefront lately because the members of the corporations, stockholders coming back and saying, how come you didn't have an effective contingency plan in place for this? We're losing money. We're getting lawsuits. So we're going to see a lot more lawsuits filed against the directors and officers of those corporations. And it could be a hotel. It could be an event planning corporation. It could be pretty much anyone, the larger one that has directors and officers. That would be a corporation. Next page. EPLI, Employment Practices Liability. This is protecting you, the business owner, from your employees when they sue you for touching them or making a sexual comment that offends them, which is the big word for 19 and 20. Everybody's offended. It's going to cover for wage issues. That's been a big lawsuit lately in the last 3 years, where people are working overtime and not getting paid for it. People using their phone at home to answer business calls and not being paid while they're on the phone for overtime hours where they're working over the 8-hour days. EPLI would give you that defense cost for that. If they accuse you of mistreating them, firing them without cause, calling them a name, teasing them, all of that would kick in under employment practices liability insurance. Most companies don't choose to purchase this because they don't think they have the exposure. And the claims that we see come in, and they're publicized widely on the TV stations and CNN and Facebook. Of course, number one information source is Facebook, right? All true. Get blown out of proportion. So be aware that this is something that if you have an employee, you should pick up this coverage. Next page. This is going quick so we can get to your question and answers. Business interruption insurance. This is a big one. This is part of a property policy. It's not included automatically. You have to add it on. It's additional coverage. And it's going to be structured in case there is a physical damage to your property, to your business. It will help pay for loss of income. This is a very lengthy process. It's going to take a long time for them to come up. They'll have an accounting company come in, take a look at what your income was. And basically, I think the average is about 3 to 5 months to process a business income claim. Because they're going to take a look at what you have on the books, what you've done in the past, and come up with a dollar amount that will handle for your overhead expenses. Everything's going to get put into there. Hopefully your bookkeeping is good, because that's the biggest hassle with a business interruption claim. The bookkeeping isn't very good. The documentation isn't good. They take a box of receipts to their accounting person at the end of the year and say, here, there's no explanations. So documentation is very big for business interruption insurance. Remember, it has to be a direct physical loss to the business. Civil authority, that's a big thing that's come up in the last 3 weeks with the phone calls to our office. It's only if the access to your business is blocked or your facility is damaged. If you don't have a roof, civil authority is going to come in and say, hey, you guys can't have anybody in your business because there's no roof. They could be injured. By them saying that it's a lockdown, that is not physical loss, not a direct physical loss to the business. Inadvertently, there's no income, but there is no direct physical loss. Attorneys are fighting this. A lawsuit filed last week from Louisiana, New Orleans, stating that there should be a direct physical loss because everything was canceled by civil authority. So this is going to go on and on for years, and it will affect the way that people handle business, the way that people structure their contracts, their insurance coverages, because there's enough unemployed attorneys right now that are going to be going after the insurance carriers. Next page.
Larry, can I just stop you there for 1 sec? I just want to grab a couple of these questions just for clarification for the rest of the webinar. When you mention business, are you only referring to for-profit companies, or do these guidelines apply to nonprofit as well?
They're going to apply, well, depending on what coverage. If you're talking about business income,
I think just in general, as you're using the statement of business, can we assume that this applies to both for and nonprofit?
yes, Dustin.
Okay, great. And then just one quick question about civil authority. I'm worried this one might get buried if we wait till the end. For civil authority, would that apply if your location was taken over for use by civil authority? So
If it was your location or like a convention center or?
Yeah, so let's call it a venue. If the venue was taken over by the city for triage or for some sort of government staging, would that qualify?
That would probably fall in under the business income because it was taken over by civil authority. Once again, the claims department is going to go through that coverage. They're going to take a look at the documentation and they'll be making that decision.
Excellent. Okay, thanks, Larry.
Good questions, good questions. Okay, event cancellation insurance. This is something that you do not take. This is something that your customer would take out to protect them in case the event's canceled. There's several different forms of event cancellation insurance and different things that will trigger it. This is something that the hospitality industry obviously is interested in because this is what you guys do. There is no coverage for the coronavirus as we see it right now, my opinion, and from what I've seen being posted, because there is no direct physical loss. But event cancellation insurance covers 5 basic types of exposures. The next slide will tell us what they are. So the 5 are cancellation, postponement, abandonment, curtailment, or relocation of the insured event. Some of those are going to apply, for instance, if they had to abandon the event due to, let's see, if you have to close the event, that's your abandonment. If you haven't had it yet, it's going to be a postponement. So abandonment's going to be it's already started and there's a fire, we're going to have to get out of the building. The convention center's on fire. Cancellation means straight up front, hey, it's going to be canceled, it's scheduled a certain date and time. We're going to have it here on this date, this weekend, this week, whatever it is, and they're going to cancel it ahead of time. Curtailment is going to kick in when they're not able to continue on, reduce your event from 10,000 people to 1,000 down to 500 individuals. that's going to be curtailment. It's got to scale all the way back down. Postponement is going to be like cancellation. Hey, we just need to change it. It's got to go to a later date than what it was already scheduled for several different reasons. Once again, the policy form and the language and the exclusions are going to detail how that's handled. And then the relocation of the insured event. With coronavirus, the relocations are going to decrease, pretty much go away, because that's a coverage in some of the policies. They're going to only apply when an event's going to be relocated to another venue than when it was originally held. And once again, several of the issues have to come up. It could be fire, it could be vandalism, it could be, tornado came through and it doesn't exist anymore. Next.
Larry, can I just ask real quick, if in your event cancellation insurance, if you're postponing, should that insurance policy state how long you can postpone for? Is there a general timeline? Is it within a year? Any advice on that?
Once again, it depends on the policy. It's how you structure the policy on the front side. So the underwriting requirements that you provide to the broker is going to say, all right, in case it has to be postponed, do I have a time frame? Some of them are open, some of them are going to say up to 1 year. A lot of them are going to have a limit, so it doesn't go on forever.
Great, thank you.
Good questions. The other thing that people have asked about weather insurance, we are in hurricane season going into, tornado season going into hurricane season. A lot of people have outdoor events or events that are going to cause an issue. We've seen the hurricanes take out everything in the Gulf area, the Florida area, all the conventions being canceled or moved. Weather insurance is real specific to date, time, location, and exposure. So for instance, if it's going to be a rain issue because you're outdoors, you can say, I'd like to buy insurance for this date between 6 a.m. and 12 p.m. No more than a 1/4 inch of rain is going to fall during those 6 hours while we are at the Lowe's Center Pavilion street and address. It's very specific. There's no variance. That's exactly what they go off of. If that happens, they pay you your hard costs that you had up front. So for a performer, a speaker, for tents, tables, chairs, couldn't cover those hard costs and give them back to you. Some of them put receipts on their gross sales for attendees. Next slide. All right, what do we got to deal with right now, and what's the future looking at going forward for the rest of the year and in the years that are going to follow? End of last year, we saw insurance policies that excess or umbrella policies, you would be familiar with those names. Anything over $1 million in coverage is going to be harder to locate. The premiums are 4 to 5 times higher than what they were in 19. Carriers have had major losses, and so they're rolling back. They're going to charge 4 or 5 times more for what you would have paid 19 or 18. There's less companies that are offering the higher limit. They're being much stricter on underwriting due to the previous claims. Now with infectious diseases and special event insurance, there's going to be less of those companies because of all the lawsuits that are being filed. The premiums I've already mentioned are going to be higher, and there's possibly going to be more exclusions. You can't buy infectious disease insurance for a special event today. Doesn't exist. Several carriers have already restricted special event insurance. They've also restricted business income adding on to a commercial policy. And that's all happened in the last week, and it's Tuesday. I already mentioned about Lloyd's of London's financial ratings are being questioned due to all the claims exposure they have worldwide. Lloyd's is the 800-pound gorilla. They insure so much in the world in so many different countries. When one thing happens, it affects everybody, because Lloyd's is that 800-pound gorilla that everybody looks to. renewing your insurance, there's going to be less carriers. It's going to be a longer time to get insurance due to people rushing to get it once everything falls off. Let's say that this pandemic's going to last 60 days. Give it 4 weeks for it to burn out, another 4 weeks for people to get to come out of their home, and then they're going to start booking again. So everybody's going to need insurance again in 90 days. There's going to be thousands, hundreds of thousands of people applying for insurance, whether it's special event insurance, any of the insurance that we've mentioned, any type of business insurance, because they've been closed, they let it cancel for non-payment. So there's going to be a huge run for insurance. If your policy is going to expire during the next 3-4 months, go ahead and process your renewal applications with your carrier, with your agent, your broker, and get it in place. Prior to this event, most quotes are good for 30 days. Some are less, depending on how serious the insurance issue that they're addressing with the purchase. So if you already have it in place, there's a good chance all they have to do is get it reapproved that the quote's good. There may be, if you quote it today and there's no coverage for infectious disease, it might be available in 3 months. Doubt it, but it might be. There's a bills in the House right now where they're trying to put together something similar to TRIA, the terrorism insurance coverage that was brought up after 9/11. That's offered to everybody, mandatory. Less than 10% take it. So there's not a lot of money in there right now if we have a terrorist attack. I would imagine the same thing is going to happen with infectious disease offering. If they come up with a way to put a premium on it that somebody can purchase. Nobody ever thought that this would happen to them. So a lot of people said, no, we don't need that. A lot of people don't have professional insurance, their E&O coverage for the professional liability. I've never been sued. Nobody ever gets sued. So the apathy has caused a large challenge in the communities because it hasn't happened. It's not something popular. But all those other pandemics that we listed at the beginning of the presentation, we've already gone through this. The insurance industry is used to seeing these type of things. They just have to let the dust settle, figure out what it is. They're going to put numbers on it. They're going to run reports. They're going to take a look at 10, 20 years, what the exposures were, how many exposures we have in the world today, and then how many we're dealing with in the United States. The challenge that we have, yes, sir.
Sorry, no, finish that thought.
The challenge that we're seeing right now with this pandemic spreading is that nobody's taking, well, a lot of people are not taking it serious. So the chance for this thing to drag on and affect the amusement and entertainment industry is pretty high. Spring break, the kids are out there partying. People are having group parties in their neighborhoods, having their friends over for dinner. You don't know where they were exposed, and they can carry it for 2 or 3 days. So that's why this thing has become so fluid, where they have no idea how bad it's going to hit the United States. International travel halted because it's Europe, China, it's everywhere. So they stopped it, but they stopped it kind of late. It's like birth control after the event. But we're trying to get a handle on it. The industry is going to bounce back. People are going to have more babies than ever come January, February of next year. And the business is going to need insurance, and they're going to need to have corporate events and trade shows still. Sports going to be back. So you guys are going to be booking all your activities again, but it may be 3 months, it may be 5 months. But you got to be on top of the information, and you got to be able to share that. Next.
So Larry, just real quickly before we move on from that, a couple things. Where is the best place for our audience to keep up with what's going on in the world of insurance? Is it best that they work with their broker? Is there an independent source that they can be going to find out what's changing?
Man, there really isn't, because it's different per state. The Department of Insurance dictates what they can and can't do based on the insurance filings that they've done. CDC's kind of dictating what's happening with the coronavirus. I think that your insurance broker that you use is number one. They should be on top of it, being able to give you updates either through their website, Facebook pages, or email blasts. And definitely pick up the phone. Don't wait for them to move you guys. The aggressor. Demand information, demand facts. He may not, or she may not be able to give you an answer right away. It's something that we're scratching the surface on, trying to figure out, all right, so in California it's this, but in Louisiana it's this, New York it's that. Florida's got a different rule. So it just depends where you're at and where the event's going to be, what we can do. And you got to tell your customers the same thing. This isn't over. It just started. We don't have definitive answers for anybody, which would be great, but it just started.
So Larry, for people that are listening to this that are looking at their overhead and expenses, is there any adjustments they can make to their policy now or considerations for the future that can help them bring their costs down while they're not actually executing events?
Great question. The insurance industry was not poised for this particular pandemic. So they give you a premium based on exposure, gross sales, let's say. This is same as an event planner producer. You pay that premium. So they take that premium, they invest it and do whatever they need to do with it, pay all their expenses. For them to drop the premium down midterm is a little harder. Under normal business, you're looking at 4 to 6 weeks for processing of an endorsement to make a change up or down. Some carriers are not willing to do that right now because it would affect them financially as much as it's affecting you guys. So they're kind of like on hold trying to figure out what's going to happen. There's talk about suspending payments, insurance payments for a few months. If it's premium finance, that changes the whole picture because the money was fronted by the premium finance company and given to the insurance company. So they're on the hook. They have all the money that they gave to the carrier. Now you owe the money to a finance company. Insurance company's got all their money, they're whole. Now, do they want to give that money back? Well, if it normally takes 4 to 6 weeks for an endorsement to make that change, now that everybody's working at home, nobody's in an office, you're looking at 8, 10, 12 weeks. By then, you're out of business. You don't have any money to make the payment. So the premium finance company, which is a cancellation, then it's another 45 days to get your money back from the insurance company, back to the premium finance company, and then back to you. So that's a complicated answer to an easy question, but there's a lot of widgets that tie into it. It's not black and white.
I get it. What's the consequence of canceling your insurance today and getting a new policy when you're back up and running? Is it in your best interest to keep your policy going, similar to how automotive insurance works?
Automotive insurance is tied to your driver's license, and you suspend your license if you don't have liability insurance. So that's not a good call on that. Let's use a different analogy.
Q&A here, sorry.
Oh, okay.
Ignore I said that.
All right. So let's take somebody that leases an office. Let's say, Dustin, you lease an office and your lease requires you have liability insurance. It may or may not require that you have property or business income. Some do now. So if your lease says that you have to have it enforced, you can go back and negotiate with them. You may not be able to enter the building because you're on lockdown, but you still have to make the payments and work that out with them. So we've told people, go to whoever your landlord is, your leasing agents, and talk to them and see what they will allow you to do. If there's a loan on the equipment, it's financed, they require that you have the insurance on it. Definitely do not cancel the property insurance because there's going to be theft and vandalism happening like with every other calamity. Not a good move. Don't recommend that. There are opportunities where if the carrier will not dance with you right now, let's say it's a 12-month policy and you've been paying it 6 months. You have 6 months left on your premium to pay with the finance company or directly to the carrier. Maybe it's better that you cancel that policy and start another minimum policy that gives you bare bones minimum. If you're an event planner, you have no events. You're not going to be planning anything. You're not going to sign any contracts, probably 30, 60, 90 days. So do you need the coverage? Not unless you have a requirement legally, contractually that says you have to have it in place. So everyone's different. Every case, if I talk to 10 event planners, you guys, you're not the round peg in the round hole. You guys morph by the day. So you start out as an event planner, then you become a producer, then you become an owner, then you become, the event. And it's just
Preaching to the choir, Larry. We know.
So it's an individual choice that you have to have that discussion with your insurance broker.
Great, thanks. Let's move on.
What should you do? Find a broker that's got several years insuring the risk in your field. Somebody new that breaks in doesn't know the nuances of what you guys do. It's not easy to figure out what an event planner or event producer does, or a caterer, or a venue. There's hungry insurance agents out there that say, hey, yeah, we got the best carriers. But if they don't know the exposures that you guys face, and they haven't seen 4, 5, 6, 10 years worth of experience insuring that type of a risk, and multiples, not just insure 2 event planners or 2 venues, you may be in an issue where you don't have the right coverage, or maybe you didn't ask the right question, or the insurance broker didn't ask you the right question. So be upfront what you're doing, explain everything that you do, write it all down since you guys are bored and have nothing else to do, but watch me on your computers. All the exposures that you've had in the last 24 months, all the different events that you've done, all the different subcontractors you brought to the events, all the activities that you guys have had. And then talk to your friends and find out what they have, match up their lists and say, okay, God, I never even thought about that. That's what you share with the insurance guy. And you do it in writing. If it's not written, it didn't happen. A phone call is not evidence in court. You guys want to make sure that the agent gives you what you're supposed to have. Make sure all the questions are answered in an email. Document the phone call with an email. Hey, we talked about this. You said I didn't need this type of coverage because I don't have that exposure, but you told me I needed these 3 other coverages. And then get a reply back. And the same thing if you have a claim or something comes up. It needs to be in writing. And you need to have an email back and forth. You print that email from your agent after he says, yep, you got it. Return it into the carrier, and you print that and send one to your mom and your dad and your neighbor, because that's your get out of jail card. Become knowledgeable what's covered and what's not covered, what those exclusions are. The exclusions are usually the biggest thing that's going to bite you guys in the butt. You definitely don't want to play ignorant at the time of a claim. And then last thing, stop buying so much toilet paper, for God's sake. I mean, this does not give you the runs or diarrhea. It gives you fever. Somebody got out some bad information on Facebook because it caused the whole industry to go to the toilet. I don't know. All right, so that's pretty much what I have for you guys. Hopefully that kind of touched from 30,000 foot level. There's a lot of questions that you guys are going to have, and you're going to wake up at 3 in the morning tomorrow and go, oh, I forgot to ask this one. But they'll have this posted on the website so you guys can refer to it later on. All right,
Great.
Justin, what else you got? Come on.
Yeah, okay, I got some more questions for you. You're ready. So I just want to get to one that ended up in the chat here. Will the event insurance policy apply to the postponed event, or do you need a new policy for the new event date? So if you have event insurance, you're postponing, do you write a new policy for the new event, or does that existing policy carry forward?
No, you write a new policy for the new event.
At what point does that?
There might be, beg your pardon?
At what point do you write that new policy?
When you have a new date, usually the carrier is going to probably want some new underwriting information about it. And the size may change. The venue may change, maybe in a different country. So they're going to want some new underwriting information. Some carriers have the ability based on their policy form to modify it and just change the date and just use the same premium. So it's going to depend on the policy type that they purchase.
Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go back to the Q&A box here. Where does one reference Lloyd's evaluation referenced? Does that question make sense to you?
No.
Okay. Who are the primary underwriters of the event industry insurance policies? Are there any primary underwriters? Is there anybody that stands out for you?
No, it depends on the size of the event and the exposures that they're going to have. There's probably 100 different companies that'll do event insurance in the United States. They're regional in nature sometimes, some are national. So there's a lot of things that have to go into place for it. It's like if you want to go fast, do you buy a Kia or a Ferrari?
Got you. Okay. If you don't finance your insurance, i.e. paid for the year at once, how can you cancel coverage or get a lower premium? Would an insurer give you a refund if you lowered your insurance or canceled?
Okay, there's a clause in all insurance policies that lets you know that if you have a minimum earned premium, normally it's 25% minimum earned, which means if you start it today, the insurance company keeps 25% of that premium, even though you cancel it in 3 days. So depending on the wording on your policy, you have to look at your policy and it'll tell you what the minimum earned is. Some of them are 50%, some of them are fully earned from the day you take it out. So there's no refund coming back. So you have to take a look. If there is no fully earned clause in there, there'll be either a pro rate or a short rate. A pro rate, you take the 12 months premium divided by 12 and figure out how many days difference there are, and you get that returned back. A short rate is more like a mortgage company where it's front loaded. You're paying more interest on the front side and less as the loan gets older. The same with prorating on a short rate insurance. If you cancel the policy, most carriers will short rate.
Got you. Okay. But yeah, that's clear. So our friend Terry Singleton, who was kind enough to introduce us to you, has a question here. With the market and what's going on, is shopping insurance rates a good idea, or are you better off taking the first offer?
Always shop. Always shop, unless you feel real comfortable with the agent broker that you're dealing with, the insurance carrier, and the coverages. It's not like going to a grocery store down the cereal aisle and picking up a box of cereal. It's real important that you have the right coverage, and nobody's ever complained on a claim that they had too much insurance. You'll hear claims that they didn't have the right insurance or they didn't get paid the right amount, whether it's lack of documentation or they think that their claim's worth more. So definitely, if you're not comfortable with the agent or the carrier, or you just want to see what the water's like, always shop around.
Great. So Larry, this whole conversation about insurance can be quite heavy. And I'm wondering, with everything that's going on in the world and in your experience, what are some of the positives that have come out of things like this for employers and business owners? Is there anything that we can look forward to in all of this?
Yes, having toilet paper on the shelves again. It always gets better with the insurance industry because now they're going to address COVID-19. Whether they're going to offer it as an inclusion that you can buy it back. Infectious diseases, it's been around for years, hundreds of years. So they're used to having to deal with a calamity. 9/11 never happened in the U.S. ground before, to that extreme. We had the bombing in Texas. I mean, there's things that happen in the world or in the United States that are new. So there's adjustment. They're very flexible. They find out, okay, we can cover that, but it's going to cost X. And they run numbers. They run reports. They take a look at probability studies. They go through a lot when they come up with a rate for a certain type of business or a certain type of risk. So it's not something that they just sit around coffee one day and go, okay, yeah, let's charge $4,000 for that. They actually have number statistics that they go through, and it's very heavy. The amount of pivot tables that we end up running when we write a new program for a different niche of business that we insure it's amazing. They want 5, 10, 15, 20 years worth of data that you've been experienced in that business, and they want to know what your losses are and what the premiums are and what caused the losses, what did they do differently to avoid those. So I would say that we've had a very soft market for the last 15 years. There's normally a 5-year span where you go from a hard market to a soft market, and that means that the money's available for them to, in their investments, to go out and lower rates. It becomes competitive because interest rates are so low, they dump their money into insuring other risks. When the claims start happening, the hard market happens, the rates go up. And in the amusement industry and the entertainment industry, we've seen Me Too claims. We've seen calamities, we've seen disasters, fires, floods, and all these take its toll. And it's not just in the United States. Once again, Lloyd's, international company, right in pretty much every country. Who would have ever thought that their finances would be challenged? But they're spread out so far with a pandemic like this. If the attorneys find a way to twist something to say that there's coverage, it's going to bankrupt the industry. Insurance companies have become insolvent. So there's some proposals in government right now that they want to provide coverage under business income and backdate it to March. Well, they never charged a premium for it. That's not part of the risk analysis when they come up with the premiums in the underwriting guidelines. So for them to try to force the insurance industry to pay, it's ridiculous. There's an exclusion that's not covered. You're going to say in court that it's covered, and it may be a political ploy, but I think it would hurt the industry more. I think that we're seeing people hurting financially because they're living paycheck to paycheck, and their debt is a lot higher than it should be. And nobody ever expects, after having a phenomenal stock market run for the last 10 months, that this would ever happen come February, March. Wow. So it's yeah. I think that we have some good things to look forward to. I think the industry is going to change the way that it approaches it. I think that I'm hoping that members of ILEA take heed on what's happened and look at some of the things that we talk about here and what you had in your previous seminar with the attorney. Look at your contracts, look at the wording. Don't copy somebody else's contract. Go to an attorney and have them look at your contract, how it applies to you in your state and your business itself, and kind of do some homework.
That's great, Larry. We managed to get through all the questions, and thank you for that. I'm going to turn this back over to Dana to close out the webinar. Dana.
Thanks so much, Dustin, for moderating, and to you, Larry, for joining us and sharing your insights and expertise. We really appreciate it. Before we conclude, if everybody can stay on for just a few moments, a few final notes for our members. Tomorrow we'll be hosting our second weekly ILEA Strong Forum, where we'll collaborate and discuss our collective plans for recovery with a focus on rebuilding, reconnecting, resiliency. So please save the date for tomorrow, Wednesday, March 25th, 3 p.m. Central. And there's no need to pre-register as with these sessions. Visit ILEAHub.com, click on the COVID-19 resources link on the page, and just join the conversation when the time begins. Next slide, page. We've mobilized such an incredible team of ILEA leaders to help us stay focused on this topic and provide and continue to have timely updates and ongoing resources. So a couple of things. Stay tuned for all of the virtual chapter meetings which we're posting, the weekly sessions that will be ongoing. And as I said, ILEAHub.com, the COVID-19 resources page. And we've been having some incredible posts on the ILEA community. So please post any questions and share resources, thoughts, and solutions with each other. And then definitely on the social side, the ILEA Connect Facebook page and Instagram. So we're all here together. And Paige, next slide. So let's just all stay connected and strong, and we look forward to seeing everybody in the coming days. And thank you for joining us today. Bye, everybody.
Bye, everybody. Stay
Bye.
safe.
Bye,
Thank you.
Larry.
Thank you. Bye, ladies.